Was anyone really surprised? Was anyone at all? Was anyone at all really surprised? You ask a mobster's moll a question she doesn't want to answer. You ask a mobster's moll a question she doesn't want to answer. And Oldham Council leak details of members of the public. They leak the names and addresses of members of the public to malicious blogger Neil Wilby. And the mobster Irish Immy also takes to social media. This is beyond a lawless town. What we have in Oldham is a town run by an alternative set of laws. And at the center of this, on one side flanked by the leader of the Cllr AROOJ SHAH, on the other side flanked by Abdul Jabbar, the shadowy figures of Pakistani mobsters, and the malicious blogger behind, stands one of the most powerful men in this country.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
While we cannot control what the small number of people seeking to create mistrust and division in our town say and do, we can collectively agree not to fuel it. We can collectively agree to address misinformation where it rears its head, rather than using it for political gain. And we can collectively agree to publicly condemn those who seek to spread hate and incite abuse.
A very good evening. It is Sunday, the 7th of November 2021. It's been a significant week in all things Oldham Council. The council sits at the centre of a massive data breach. What has taken place under AROOJ Shah's stewardship should not surprise anyone who is familiar with the tactics of this Labour-run administration. She is simply carrying on where Sean Fielding left off and abusing her position to attack and intimidate her critics. That she hasn't distanced herself from what has took place, well, I think we all know how, and by the time I finish with you today, you'll see a recurring pattern that I will share with you with other stories that have took place where all, suspect number one. You don't need Miss Marple. You don't need Miss Marple here. You don't need Columbo. You don't need Poirot. You don't even need Scooby-Doo. It is blatantly obvious what is going on here. Those of you who ventured in real life to the council meeting would have been met by the police, there to intimidate you. And if they weren't enough, there was also private security guards there, unlawfully attempting to search people who turned up to a council meeting to sit in the public gallery. Do not for one moment think this has anything to do with the safety of councillors. At no point in the history of Oldham Council has any councillor faced anything resembling a threat in a council meeting. I think it's usually Warren Bates and a couple of others who rock up to the full council meetings. The police were there. Private security guards paid for by you were there. And some people feeling apprehensive, rightfully so, turned away and left. This isn't democracy. This is something else. This is not how our country is meant to run. But the police were there and private security guards were there. And whilst the police and private security guards were there, do you know the councillors were? Do any of you know what happens before a council meeting? Bear in mind, these councillors receive a healthy allowance. Every one of them receive a healthy allowance from yourselves, and they also sit on committees where they receive a healthy allowance, and so should they also represent the council on external bodies, they get another healthy allowance for that. So it's a full-time job. The likes of the leader of the council, I think they earn £50,000-60,000, just basic. Do you know where the councillors were? Whilst they complain about children starving, whilst they complain about the government and food banks, the councillors, prior to a full council meeting, the councillors sit down for a feast, a banquet, a lavish meal paid for by you. Were you aware of this? They sit down for a lavish meal paid for by you. Pigs at the trough, they stuff their faces, which is probably why, when they're sat down in the council meetings, some of them appear fast asleep, on the verge of being fast asleep, because they don't really say a single word, do they? And this week's council meeting. Oh, it's worse, Julie. It's actually worse. You know what else you're paying for? Do you know what else you're paying for? The councillors don't park in the Queen Elizabeth Hall and walk across like you and I or anyone else would do. The councillors have a special entrance into the underground car park, where you also pay for a special security guard to sit there, meet them, and take them up in the lift. Yeah, I'm not joking. They have a special car park, that they manned car park, woman car park, whatever the phrase is, that you pay for as well. So they come along, park their cars in this underground car park, are met, taken in a lift to the lavish meal before they go and sit themselves down. And a private security guard, the private security firm, was also paid by you guys, Oldham. It was also paid for by you guys. So all of this is on your council tax. And when the meeting started, it took a predictable turn. Oh, thousands, tens of thousands, Lynn. Without a shadow of a doubt. Private security firm. Meet and greet. What are they called? You have them in America, don't you? Where they come and take your car off you and park it for you, whatever they're called. It's something akin to that. It's not a concierge, is it? But you know what I mean. A lavish meal prepared for them. All paid for by you. all paid for by you. And that's really the point, isn't it, Jack? This is the, a town with the highest council tax in the country. And here we are, Valet. Thank you, Father Samosa. Father Samosa, that's a nice name. You know what I meant to do today? I meant to come in with a samosa, a nibble on my samosa. Do as we say, not as we do, Sheila. Do as we say, not as we do. So, when the meeting started, they invited a new senior police officer. And I'm not going to play any of that. It was a car crash. In his Welsh accent. I could talk for longer than 10 minutes, but I'm not. I could talk for longer than 10 minutes. Actually, he couldn't talk for longer than 10 minutes, which is why he kept making reference to the fact that he could talk for longer than 10 minutes. He was absolutely appalling. And the following day, I heard via a police officer, serving Oldham police officer, it's nice to know that the most senior police officer in the town has made the time to go to a council meeting when he hasn't made the town to speak to the frontline officers. No, I'm not joking there either. So, here's a political appointment, and the purpose of this political appointment is very clear. The councillors, the leader of the council, the leader of the opposition, Soft Sheldon, and Howard Sykes asked her questions. Well, actually, Soft Sheldon didn't ask any questions. He just welcomed the leader of the Conservatives, just welcomed him. The town on its knees, vigilante street patrols doing what they want, mobsters patrolling the streets, people being beaten up and battered, the police not turning up, and the Conservative leader just welcomed him. Howard Sykes came the closest to asking anything challenging. AROOJ Shah, well, you can imagine AROOJ Shah. The deal's been done already, hasn't it? We'll ignore all of Greater Manchester Police's failings, and in return, you ignore our corrupt council. It doesn't take a genius to work out what sort of arrangements are being discussed between AROOJ Shah's council and a police force that the Prime Minister has confirmed to be corrupt. And Brian Hoban. And I like the guy. I like the guy. I've had him on here. But what I find interesting with Brian Hoban is, forget selling me out. Any of these politicians who I've worked with can sell me out. It's irrelevant to me. But he's now selling out the people of Failsworth. And his question was just as atrocious as the Conservatives.
So thank you very much for listening to that brief introduction. I'm sure I'll get to meet loads of you over the coming months, and I believe I now am going to take a few questions under the direction of the Mayor. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Indeed you are. Can I call on group leaders to ask a question? Councillor Shah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you. I think you can be seated now, really. Yeah. So I think it's really important for me to acknowledge that I have met the Chief Constable, both individually and at the combined authority. And after hearing him and hearing you today, I'm absolutely reassured that you both could. But as you referenced, the central issue to GMP is a loss of confidence. And whilst I'm personally reassured that you're both committed to driving that confidence and making sure that the force responds to residents' needs as and when they arise, would you possibly be able to outline briefly how you envisage doing that to build that trust back within our communities? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's my great pleasure to congratulate and welcome you, Chris, to this new post as District Commander in Oldham. I'm sure you know the difficulties and concerns that we all face daily and the nature of serious crime which is happening in this borough and in many cities around the country. Many years ago as a child, I would quiver in my boots on seeing a policeman on the street. This was not through any guilt, but from the respect we were taught as children. The respect has been eroded over the years, and I feel there is still a lack of respect in our communities, not only to each other, but to the services which are the police, fire, ambulance, who are there, after all, to help us all out. This council, and I concur with Councillor Shah, will offer our full support to you and our sincere wishes that you will make great improvements to the policing in this town. And from your last statement, I found it very reassuring that it's going to be one of the safest places to live. Thank you and welcome to Oldham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, welcome. I'm glad you're settling in. That's great to hear. I would like, obviously, to welcome you, your address to full council, and I hope that this becomes a regular event and isn't just another, apologize me for being cynical, police sort of flashing the pan initiative that is once done and never repeated. As elected members, we're always keen to receive police updates and to have the opportunity to ask questions of senior officers as part of our wish to fight crime in partnership, and to raise concerns from our constituents. Now, if we go back 20 years to 2001 and the Oldham riots, born from that was township policing, the predecessor of neighbourhood policing. Each ward had its own dedicated community beat officer, 2 police community support officers, with response policing dealing with daily calls. The community beat officers and police community support officers worked in partnership with the public, ward councillors, council officers, other professionals across a range of health, housing, social care and mental health agencies to deliver true community policing and to keep our communities safe and, just as important, feeling safe. That was the solution then, and it worked, but it is sadly lacking now in its current form. It has been eroded and eroded to make up for staffing and financial shortfalls, to the extent there is now very little community focus and levels of engagement with councillors, the community and others are but a shadow of what it was. The result is less confidence. The people, regardless of the data, feel less safe and less confident in the communities in which they live. The public want reassurance of seeing uniformed police officers and police community support officers as a visible presence on their streets and in their communities. I know that we as elected members and many of our constituents want also to support the police in the fight against crime. So how do you think we can return to this effective and visible method of policing to bring back public confidence in Greater Manchester Police within our Oldham Borough? And more specifically, could you tell me what 3 things in local policing will have visibly improved for our residents in 12 months' time?
Councillor Hoban, please, your question.
More of a statement. I'd like to welcome you as well, Chief Superintendent, sat over here in the back, in the cheap seats at the back. Welcome to Oldham. Your enthusiasm and your passion shone out while you were stood up there addressing us, and I just hope that working together we can keep that enthusiasm going and extend an invite for you to come down to the districts, my districts, and have a chat and see what the areas are really like. I look forward to working with you.
But as the meeting went on, as the people of Failsworth found out at the end, AROOJ SHAH outmanoeuvred Brian, outflanked him, outfought him, and Failsworth was shafted, comprehensively shafted, which is what happened at the end of the meeting. And before people woke up and understood what had happened, the cartels had their way. AROOJ SHAH and Amanda Chadderton had her way. And they left. No doubt for that after party at a mocktail bar not too many miles away.
Item 15, District Leads. I call on Councillor Chadderton to move and Councillor Shah to second the report. All members have an interest in this item and a dispensation has been granted. So, Councillor Chadderton to move, please.
Move, Madam Mayor, and just for, if it's okay, just for a point of clarification about the process around this. So we had 6 districts and we're moving into 5 clusters. There'll be 5 leads in each of those clusters. Following meetings between myself and officers and members from those clusters, it was asked by members in the North cluster and the East cluster for those to have a deputy. Those deputies would oversee in the North, Shah and Crompton, and in the East, Saddleworth. There was an argument that there are 2 distinct communities. At the moment, the governing structure allows for Saddleworth to be split from St James and Waterhead, and the same with Shah and Crompton and Royton. That was fine by me as lead member. If that's what people wanted, that's what people wanted. So those 2 areas will have a deputy. As a ruling group, we have put forward 5 leads for each of the clusters. We have not put forward a deputy for the North or for the East. We accept a proposal from the Conservative group that Pam Byrne becomes the deputy in the East, which is fine. I understand the Liberal Democrats have put forward a proposal that Diane Williamson becomes the lead in North. Obviously, as the ruling group, we've put our own nomination forward. We're happy to accept Diane Williamson as the deputy in the North that will oversee Shah and Crompton. It is obviously at the disposal of the Liberal Democrat group if they'd like to take that to a vote over Diane becoming lead or deputy or not. That is the proposal as we put it forward.
Thank you. So, do you want, will you second that, Councillor?
Yeah, second that, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So I have had advance nominations, and nominations will be by a simple majority. There wasn't anything on here for debate, Councillor Woodvine, on this. We'll be going to each of the districts, looking at the nominations, and it will be by simple majority. Okay. So for Central Lead, the nomination is Councillor Salamat. Is that agreed?
Agreed, Madam Mayor.
North Lead, the first nomination is Councillor Stephen Bashforth. Those 4. The second nomination is Councillor Williamson. Those 4. The third nomination is Councillor Arnott. Those 4. So, Councillor Williamson. Yeah.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm struggling to understand the proceedings here. Could you just qualify what it is we're voting on again, please?
Yeah, we've had 3 nominations for North, and it's by just simple majority, the number of votes that each of the nominees receives. So you need to make it really clear. We'll go through them again.
Please.
Yeah, I know sometimes the sound and the acoustics in here aren't brilliant, are they? So I'll say the names again. So you're voting for the person that you want as the lead in that district. So the first nomination is Councillor Steve Bashforth. The second nomination is Councillor Williamson. And the third nomination is Councillor Arnott. So Councillor Steve Bashforth is the lead for the North District. Thank you. The North Deputy, the nomination I've received is for Councillor Williamson. Is that agreed? The East Lead, The first nomination I've received is Councillor Cosgrove. Those for Councillor Cosgrove. Thank you. So, yeah, oh, sorry, the second one was withdrawn. So, Councillor Cosgrove is the lead. East Deputy, I've had a nomination of Councillor Byrne. So, is Councillor Byrne agreed for East Deputy? Thank you. So, Councillor Byrne is agreed that you are East Deputy. So the South District, the first nomination is Councillor Davis. Those for Councillor Davis. The second nomination is Councillor Abid. Those for. So Councillor Davis wins the nomination. So Councillor Davis will be the South lead. So the West District, the nomination is Councillor Brownridge. Is that agreed? So Councillor Brownridge becomes the West lead. Thank you very much. Yeah, there are a few hands going up, but I'm not sure. Is it a point of order or something?
Just for clarity, I mean, we've gone through the nominations now, but if this happens again in the future, if there are multiple people nominated for a position, could we please have a list of all of them before we start voting? Because otherwise we don't know what the vote is about.
That's something to bring forward. It's been May, won't it, the next, for the next annual council, I think, where the voting for these positions will happen again. I think I'm right there. So, yeah, you'll have the opportunity to make that that proposal. So, Councillor Shah, do you wish to comment? You have a right to reply on this. Oh, sorry, Councillor Chadderton.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just say congratulations to everybody that's a lead and a deputy in their areas.
Thank you. So does Council agree the recommendations in the report? Thank you.
No one has commented on this. Because this is a massive power grab. So yes, if you can't see it's a massive power grab, you are thick as pig shit. If you're not prepared to speak out against this massive power grab, then you don't deserve all of the votes you've got. And I'll say that to the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, everyone. This is what happened at the end of the meeting. You all missed it. But what they created, what Amanda Chadderton AROOJ SHAH created, was 5 new districts. So districts are how local democracy operates. So you have the council. And then underneath, you have 5 districts that are created through which the communities engage. Budgets will be delegated, powers will be delegated. And when you want to carve up a town that you're on the verge of losing power in certain areas, what you do is this. Brian Hoban made reference to it a couple of meetings ago, where he talked about the districts and when the districts will be reconvened. And I have no doubt he was hoping for a better outcome than the one he got. So we used to have 6 districts and now we've got 5. We used to have 6 district officers, council officers, looking after 6 districts. Now we have 5 districts. We still have 6 council officers being paid. Yeah. And what they've done with the districts are really, really interesting. So the North District, right? So here, you can see it all. Crompton, Royton, North Royton, South and Shore. Kind of makes sense, you know, so they've shoved that together. All right. Central District, Alexandra, Coldhurst and St. Mary's. Interesting. Really interesting. So these are some of the cartel areas. Alexandra, Coldhurst and St. Mary's. Here they are. Okay. And then the fun and games start. The West District. The 3 Chadderton wards, Chadderton North, Chadderton South, Chadderton Central. And do you know what they just did? They've taken the cartel ward of Werneth out and thrown it in with Chadderton. So North Chadderton and Werneth now, joined together, control all of this. They control all of this area here, what they call the West District. So Chadderton is controlled by Werneth and the North Chadderton Cartel, the Bangladeshis and the Pakistanis, overwhelmingly. The East District is hilarious. The 3 Saddleworth wards, you understand, they go together. They've thrown Waterhead in there. Remember last week I shared with you, before any of this was confirmed in the public, I shared with you how Waterhead was now a cartel ward. But they've also thrown St James in. So what they've done there is they've thrown in St James, even though a Conservative councillor's come in there and they're starting to make some waves there. So they've watered down any power or influence. So all of this has been handed over. Oh no, not to the Conservatives, who have the majority of councillors in Saddleworth, or the Lib Dems. No, no, no. It's been handed over to a woman called Angela Cosgrove, a Labour Party councillor, whose only time she ever speaks in a council meeting is at a confirmed, at a recorded vote, where you've got to say yes or no when someone asks you a question. She's never spoken, no leadership skills whatsoever, and she now is in charge of all of this. She's now in charge of all of this. You'll have to tell me what Durka has in common with Greenfield, but I'll leave that to you. Werneth, Father Samosa, has been handed over to Chadderton. Werneth has been lumped in with Chadderton. They've carved this up so that the cartels can control, or the Labour Party can control, as much of the town as possible. And in the south, Failsworth East, Failsworth West, and Hollingwood. You understand that, don't you? You understand that. Failsworth East, Failsworth West, and Hollingwood being put together makes sense. You know what doesn't make sense? How you feeling, Brian Hoban? You enjoyed being shafted? Have you even worked out that you've been shafted? No, you've not even worked it out that you've been shafted, have you? You're doing a disservice. Failsworth Independence, you're doing a disservice to the people of Failsworth. You need to learn the rules of the game. And if you can't, you need to go and find someone who'll teach you the rules of the game. And if you think you can do a deal with AROOJ Shah, you genuinely are thick as pig shit. Did you get a position on there, Brian? No, you didn't, did you? Because it got handed over to Medlock Vale. Medlock Vale now control the Pakistanis from Medlock Vale. Remember, they're moving into Hollingwood. I told you, didn't I, last week? I told you. Exactly. So Labour has a majority on each district, which means funds can be blocked or agreed to each area. That's exactly what's took place. And what have the Failsworth Independents done? Bugger all. Did they say a word? Did they even understand? No. sold down the river. Oh, we want to work with the Labour Party. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what's gone on with Failsworth independence. It's not a joke, Sally. It's called politics. And if you're thick as pig shit and you can't see what these people have done because you're falling asleep at the end of a meeting, I'm not obviously referring to you, Sally. I'm referring to the councillors in there. And they rush it through. And you shouldn't be in that room in the first place. You're there to fight. You're there, elected, to fight for the people of the town. Not to grovel up to the establishment that's already there. Hoping that, your aspiration isn't to be accepted by them. The more they despise you, the more you are doing the job that you're elected to do. Failsworth has been sold out. And the Failsworth independents, remember, independents, didn't even understand what took place in the meeting, haven't issued a statement. And I'll tell you what they're doing with the Failsworth councillors. Because it's what I would do with the Failsworth councillors. I'd tie them up in knots. I'd have them sit on committees where the time is tied up, but where they have little, if any, influence. Pander to them, to their faces, knowing full well that not only will they be ineffective, we can then demonstrate that they're ineffective. So when we go out again, if not this May, definitely next May, we can campaign on the basis that, look, see, we're in power. If you vote for us, you'll have councillors who can actually make a difference in the town hall for you, rather than these Failsworth independents, and they'll be gone like that. Because that's politics. So you suck up to AROOJ Shah, sell me out, sell the people of Failsworth out, grow a backbone, start to ask some questions, start to stand up for yourselves, and recognise that no matter how you want it to be, it isn't that way. These people are our enemies. They are not our friends, and you have been elected to fight them on behalf of the people who elected you. So, each district committee gets a chairman, chairwoman, chairperson. Labour, across the board, naturally. Each of them gets paid £6,000. Oh yes, did I not mention that? Each of them gets paid an additional £6,000. And in 2 areas, there are deputies as well. I don't know if the deputies get paid. It wouldn't surprise me if they also got some of your hard-earned council tax money. They can call them what they want, Charles. They get paid £6,000. And then there are deputies. But in 3 of the areas, there were no deputies. In North, Crompton, Royton, North Royton, South and Shaw, they had a deputy because Howard Sykes did a deal with the Labour Party. And one of his councillors became a deputy. give me a second. I'll just bring it up. Diane Williamson, Lib Dem councillor, suddenly became a deputy. And in Saddleworth, in the East District, the Conservative Pam Brine, who's been hanging around AROOJ SHAH like a bad smell, also became a deputy. No deputy for you, was there, Brian Hoban? No. Why is that, Brian Hoban? Why did they get a deputy in North, in Crompton, Royton and Shaw? Why did they get a deputy in Saddleworth, St James and Waterhead? And in Failsworth West, Failsworth East? No, no deputy there, was there? Did he even read the paperwork, lad? Did you even read the paperwork? Mark has just sent me a message. He can't respond to my comments. No idea, Mark. You've got to be signed in, I think, on your YouTube channel. So you've got to be signed in on Google, I think, Mark, to respond. So you're more than welcome to do that. It's nothing at my end that I've done. But no, sorry. If you want to get offended, get offended. Because you've had rings run round you. And every month you're having rings run round you. You're trying to do deals with the Labour Party and the Labour Party have just shafted you. Black and white, they've just shafted you. They've put Medlock Vale in with Failsworth. They've put Coppice in with Failsworth. Someone explain to me how Coppice fits in with Failsworth. You can't, can you? Because it doesn't. And I've followed all of the pages for the last week since the council meeting. No one has commented on this. Because this is a massive power grab. So yes, if you can't see it's a massive power grab, you are thick as pig shit. If you're not prepared to speak out against this massive power grab, then you don't deserve all of the votes you've got. And I'll say that to the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, everyone. And no, I'm not blocking anybody. I'll come and sit in Failsworth this week if you want. And anyone in Failsworth can ask me and I'll explain this to you. And you can try and defend what's took place. And your failures to stand up to this. It's because they don't understand it, Jack. They don't understand it. You've got to invest. You've got to invest this and read all of the stuff. You also, those of you who watched the meeting, saw what happened to Mark again. And I like Mark. I have no issue with Mark. He's not the leader of the Failsworth Independents. He tried to raise a point of order on the public question time and he just got shouted down. He just got shouted down by the mayor.
So
point of order, Madam Mayor.
So, yes, Councillor Wilkinson. If it's to ask a question, I'm afraid we don't have questions at this point.
It's in relation to the item you just mentioned, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
It's in relation to item 9, the Youth Council.
Yeah, well, there is no Youth Council business tonight.
And that's exactly what I want to mention, Madam Mayor. Since being elected in May of this year, this is the fourth full council meeting I've been to.
On
each and every
Councillor
occasion, there has been an allotted time slot of 20 to 30 minutes for youth council business. However, this allocation has never been taken up. Is it possible, therefore, that this time be given over to public questions to extend the insufficient 15 minutes agreed by the council? Surely the public would appreciate a greater opportunity to be involved in these meetings. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson, that wasn't appropriate to bring that up at that time. It's up to the Youth Council whether they... we keep that on the agenda because that was agreed by full council. That is available to them every meeting and cannot be allocated to other items on the agenda.
It seems a shame, Madam Mayor, though, when it's not being used and this opportunity could be used for public questions.
No. These decisions are made at full council meetings after reports have been discussed. We can't just make things up on the night as we go along.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Do you know what should have happened if they'd got their act together and understood the process? Someone phoned me up this week and said, Raja, your stuff is getting a bit boring now. I'm like, no, it's getting technical because to understand the rules of the game, to understand how to win, you've got to take the time out to read the small print, to understand the details. What should have happened, if you want to change the public question time, and the point Mark made was legitimate, there's a youth council, I think, has half an hour for some reason. The public are 15 and the public always runs out. Can we not do something there? Lads, you can table a motion. There's 3 of you now. Not one of you. You've seen the Liberal Demo... What were they? What are the motions? Thanking the Ramblers? Was that not one of the motions? Something to do with climate change? Universal credit last month. Right, let's write a letter to the government. Spend an hour ranting. There's been 4 council meetings since you guys have been elected. Have you took a single motion? Why not? They've got that, haven't they? Proposer and seconder. They've got 3 councillors. 3, you know. And I listened to Hindle's question. He did well. He got up and asked a question. I thought his question was good. He presented himself well. Asked a powerful question. And no, I'm not picking on the Failsworth independents. I'm just looking at this and I can see the frustration of people around me. And I can see what the Labour Party are up to. Because if the Failsworth independents fall, then the opposition elsewhere in the town falls, because people will think, what's the point? What's the point? And it was classic local government politics tactics. Bore the shit out of you. And with 5 minutes left to go, rush it through, and before anyone's woken up, they've voted it through, carved up the town into 5 districts that they now control. Because surely what should have took place, and the councillors, all of them, the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, but you can see, Pam Burns done her own deal. Sheldon's not going to fight, is he? You can see Graham Sheldon's not going to fight. The Lib Dems are cozied up to the Labour administration anyway. Where was the alternative proposal for how the districts should have been carved up? There's not a single person in Failsworth who's going to say it's right that we're combined with Coppice. There's not a single person in Failsworth who's going to say, why haven't we got a deputy when other areas have? And even if they'd carved it up this way, with these are the 5 districts, if you listen to the end of that council meeting, it's a 3-hour council meeting, and it's all played out in 5 minutes at the end. If you listen to the end, You'll see people don't even know, the councillors don't even know who's standing where as leads or deputies. And the mayor forced it through. Of course, it could have been carved up differently. Would you put Coppice in with Failsworth? Would you put St James Durker in with Greenfield? How on earth has Werneth ended up in Chadderton? No. Comprehensively outmanoeuvred. Comprehensively outmanoeuvred. And sorry, you're occupied with this bullshit. Of course they could. They could have, one, suggested alternative district arrangements. This didn't just materialise out of thin air. They could have proposed alternative district arrangements. They could have proposed alternative ways of electing district leads. So let me explain. Why would you have a councillor from Failsworth, and I'm picking on Failsworth just because I am, why would you have a councillor from Failsworth voting on who is the district lead for Royton? You wouldn't, would you? Why would you have a councillor from Saddleworth voting on who is the district lead in Chadderton? So the second thing they could have done is push for that actually once we've agreed the districts, is for the councillors in those districts to elect. They could have come up with 6 districts. Who decided to knock it down from 6 to 5? I feel sorry for the people of St James. I feel sorry for the people of Failsworth. I feel sorry for the people of Chadderton. And there's that, isn't there, mate? There's that. There's a history of 7 townships. You know Oldham Metropolitan Borough with the 7 little squares underneath? It's for the councillors, Marlene. It's for the councillors that get paid an allowance to read the bloody paperwork that they get. And I'm criticising all of them in the opposition. See, Sally? You can see what they've done now, can't you? How can someone in Hollingwood have a vote for what happens in Royton? How can someone in Failsworth have a vote for what happens in Greenfield? How can someone in Werneth, St Mary's or Coldhurst vote for what happens in Crompton when they're carving up districts? There was a time, Nick, when there was training courses for new councillors. And people who got on board also had training courses through the towns where they became councillors, as well as the party having access to a bank of training for new councillors. So the Labour Party have their own training programmes. They mentor new councillors with experienced councillors. It's where I received my political education. It was in that space. No, Marlene, I think it's worse. I don't think they were even aware of what was taking place around them. I don't think they were even aware of what was taking place around them. I've been nothing but complimentary of the young councillor Beth Sharp, or Sahabid. She represents St James. Does Councillor Sharp? How does she feel of her ward, the people of her community being sold out and lumped in with Saddleworth? She didn't say a single word in that meeting. Why? Was it because she was disgusted? That's how Pam Burma had done a deal. My contempt, and it is contempt, and if you want to take it personal like the Proud of Oldham lot do, then fine, take it personal. But I don't mean it personal. You've got to do better. You've got to stand up for the working class communities that have elected you to fight this corrupt Labour Party administration. I don't care if you're a Conservative, I don't care if you're Lib Dem, I don't care if you're Failsworth Independent. You've got to do better. They get them weeks in advance, Julie, and the way it comes through is through committees and all the rest of it. No, Sally, the deputies matter. If they didn't matter, they'd have just had them across all 5 of them. The fact that they've only got them in the wards where deals were done. I'll explain. In Royton, Barrelgate Bashforth is in charge. So to appease the Lib Dems, a Lib Dem councillor, Dan Williamson, was put in place as a deputy. In Saddleworth, they parachuted in Angela Cosgrove, who's never said a word in St James, to lead the entire area. 5 wards. 5 wards. A woman who's never said a word. 5 wards. But because Pam Byrne has been brown-nosing AROOJ Shah, she secured herself a deputy so she can, turn up with her fancy earrings and a necklace on and drink tea and biscuits. And in Failsworth, they've decided no deputy. Why have they decided no deputy? Is it because 3 of the councillors are Failsworth independents and they'd have to give one of them a deputy position? So this was the real story of the council meeting. Not thanking the Ramblers, or passing a motion climate change, whilst ignoring the toxic tower. It wasn't the Conservative motion on, what was it? To submit an application to the Heritage Commission, or was it National Heritage, to get a portion of Saddleworth designated as... Listen, they spent close to an hour. Luke Lancaster spoke. Max Woodvine spoke. They all applauded, and then the Labour Party worked with them on passing a motion. Idiots. The motion was to submit an application, by the way. If you have any understanding of how local government works, if you pass a motion for the council to agree to submit an application, it's not something for a full council meeting where 45 minutes is eaten up. It's something you do at a committee stage below that. They're being played. They're being played. Is it my job to reach out to them? And you want me to reach out to them after what Brian Hoban said? Whilst he was thumbs up with AROOJ Shah? He did a deal with AROOJ Shah and he's just been shafted. That's what's took place. The minutes are published on the council's webpage, Lynn. Everyone was aware. Now, I wasn't aware of the vote, of how the vote would play out. I wasn't aware of whether others would be silent. I'm not the councillor here, Lynn. Or go and get yourself educated. The Labour Party, in partnership with the Liberal Democrats, are running rings. And do you know what will happen? Do you know what the long-term game is? Come 2023, they want to demonstrate that the independents are completely ineffective, so there's no point in voting for them. And in the working class areas where the Conservatives are starting to make some gains, they want to show that they are also completely ineffective. Because the Labour Party is doing deals with the Conservatives in Saddleworth. You don't need to be a genius to work out or to see in front of you what is taking place. And no, I know many of you have loyalties to the Failsworth Independents. I do. I do. I am genuinely loyal to them. But they need to know what is taking place and how they're being played. And if they want to cozy up to these Labour Party councillors, then so be it. They'll get played at every opportunity. And come election, Labour Party will knock on the doors in Failsworth and say, see, they're useless. No, Charles. No. Labour are able to run things the way they are because there is a complete absence of opposition in the town hall. It's not voter apathy. The elections last May clearly demonstrated that people will go out and vote in the thousands, hopeful of change. You want to get serious? Get serious. If you don't want to get serious, carry on as you are. Look lost at this. They call it the Green Book, by the way, the papers that come out beforehand. Ignore that. Look, what happened? What did they just do there? What happened? Hey, bro, you see what happened there? Howard Sykes, like this. You've seen it all before. Sat there like this. Sam Al-Hamdan, who's actually in a civil war with Howard Sykes for control of the Lib Dems, like, hey, what have you just done? He had a good meeting, actually, Sam. He had a good meeting. Conservatives, Sahar didn't turn up. Gave her apologies. Some other councillor gave her apologies as well, but I don't understand why you can give your apologies for a council meeting when you've been elected as a councillor, as a full council meeting. The dates are preset in your diary. They're set for the full year. There's what, 9? 10 council meetings in a year? They do it to eat up time, John. And bore you. So when the real stuff happens, you don't realise it's happened. Why do you think the council removed broadcasts of 2 full council meetings? It's because we put them under pressure and we exposed them from the outside in. Why do you think the MP, several MPs, the police are so busy trying to close this down? It's because I'm politically educating you. I'm not shouting and screaming at you. And I'm begging the councillors who want better for the town to be better themselves. And if you listen to me, you'll see me repeat this phrase every bloody week. Learn the rules of the game. Learn the rules of how a council operates. And honestly, I can't stand the Labour Party and the way they run this town. But what they did on Wednesday night was ruthless. Ruthlessly efficient. Ruthlessly effective. And a ruthless demonstration of what a group of people who understand the rules can and will do. Okay, enough of that. To my friends in Failsworth, if I've in any way offended you, I apologise. I've definitely not blocked any of you from commenting. And I'm happy, if I'm ever of use, to come and sit with you and try and be as helpful as I can. The same goes to the Conservatives, the same goes to the Lib Dems. The Lib Dems don't need me. They know exactly what they're doing. They're playing both sides. You can see how difficult this task is. I don't envy anyone. And I don't envy anyone who wants to be a councillor. Because I think they're set up to fail in this town. Please, if you haven't, subscribe to the channel, like the pages. Maybe buy me a midnight samosa. I'll leave it entirely up to you. But in the end, the place we're in, if you want your town back, you don't just need to vote them out. The people who move in need to be better. Good night.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.